And President Cyril Ramaphosa and U.S. President Donald Trump have met at the White House in Washington, D.C. in a bid to reset and revitalize bilateral relations between the countries. The visit focused specifically on reframing bilateral economic and also commercial relations, including the punitive import tariffs introduced by Trump, the Russia and the Ukraine war, and also the disinformation around genocide claims in South Africa. News Central's Bongani Sisiba has more.
President Donald Trump sat down to discuss the future of their nation's relationship. The atmosphere started on a light note with laughter and jokes about recent visit, particularly the visit of Ukraine's president to South Africa. They exchanged humorous remarks about trade and cooperation, emphasizing mutual interest in strengthening economic ties. Both leaders expressed optimism about expanding trade partnership and exploring new avenues for economic growth.
A whole range of issues, geopolitical, the work that you're doing to bring peace around the world, Ukraine and in the Middle East. So we value that, and we are also a great contributor to peace processes that are going on around the world.
But the tone shifted when a journalist posed the controversial question, allegations of genocide in South Africa. President Trump claimed white farmers are being killed and mistreated, citing reports and social media claims. South Africa's opposition leader Julius Malema's song, Kill the Boer, sparked the intense debate, referred by the U.S. administration as evidence of ongoing violence on accusations South Africa strongly denies.
These are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know. To pick anyone. White South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all. I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently.
President Ramaphosa remained composed, firmly rebutting these allegations. He clarified that South Africa is committed to peace, stability, and economic development, dismissing claims of genocide as baseless.
We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well,
and this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters.
Supporting the president's stance, Johan Rupert admitted there is no evidence of genocide in South Africa, emphasizing the country's dedication to safeguarding all its citizens.
But the crime is bad.
The crime is terrible, sir, but Mr. Steenhuisen won't admit to it, but he runs the Western Cape, where I live. And the biggest murder rate is in the Cape Flats. Gangs. We've got gang warfare. Like your M33, what these guys. We've got equivalents there, but we need your help, sir.
Meanwhile, critics have described the meeting as a success, highlighting the positive outlook and the shared commitment to fostering stronger ties. South Africa's delegation underscored their desire to build a relationship rooted in trade, economic partnership rather than politics or conflict. President Cyril Ramaphosa also expressed optimism about future collaborations and that he is looking forward to passing G20 presidency to the United States later this year, signaling a new chapter in U.S.-South Africa relations. In Johannesburg for News Central, Bongani Sisiba.
Now to further discuss this, I'm joined by international journalist Ken Karuri, who joins in from Nairobi in Kenya. Ken, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Ken, what are your overall thoughts of the meeting between President Ramaphosa and also Donald Trump? Did South Africa's delegates hold it well?
I think there are already speculation and concern that President Ramaphosa was probably walking into a trap. We saw what happened in February when Ukrainian President Zelensky when he was at the Oval Office, and he was ambushed by President Trump together with his deputy J.D. Vance. And there are concerns that President Cyril Ramaphosa was probably walking into the same sort of scenario yesterday. The meeting started off well until the latter stages when we saw during the time for the questions with one of the journalists asking about the so-called persecution of the white farmers in South Africa. And that is where the meeting now became a bit tense. President Ramaphosa tried to that there is South Africa can be able to enhance its trade as well as investments with United States, and trying to move away from the issues to do with which had dominated the discussions earlier on whether South Africa was actually persecuting the white farmers. At the same time, President Trump was able now to seize on that, and he was able to pin President Ramaphosa on the same. And despite the fact that trying to hit the salvos at President Ramaphosa, I think Ramaphosa played it really well. He was cool, and the fact that he was able to bring on board the other white people who are in South Africa who are together with him, such as John Rupert, who is one of the richest businessmen in South Africa, as well as the two golfers, that's the Retief Goosen, as well as Annie Owls, and also the DA leader, that's John Stehanson. He was able to sort of show a picture of the Rainbow Nation, and which I think was the smart way to do when he was able to talk to President Trump about the issues which were happening in South Africa, and which Trump had earlier said was one of the, he had condemned South Africa for what he said was the unfair treatment of the white farmers.
All right, Ken. Donald Trump insisted on the claims that the discussion centered on allegations of white genocide other than the issues of trade and also economic ties. Do you think that this was appropriate? Do you think there was a bit of a perhaps maybe overcompensation when it comes to the topic of white genocide?
There's actually concern that President Trump has actually been misled in terms of the information that he has on the so-called persecution and genocide of the white farmers. He's been ramping up allegations saying that the white farmers in South Africa have actually been are being discriminated, and because the South Africa's government, which is predominantly black, wants to take away their land. We've seen there is the land expropriation bill law, which is already in place, and South Africa's government has actually been trying to resolve this particular issue of the land, which still remains emotive by bringing on board what he says a market value to enhance what you might say is a buyer willing seller sort of a transaction to ensure that the white farmers are able to sell the land to the government at what they feel is the market appropriate rate. But President Trump still feels that the farmers, the white farmers are actually being discriminated. And that's why he's actually been saying that he wants all the white farmers who cannot be able to get an opportunity to go to United States. Already last week, we saw about 60 white farmers, Afrikaners, who have already migrated to United States. He wants more of them to also continue moving there. But President Cyril Ramaphosa, together with his entourage, were adamant, and they still maintain that they are not in any way victimizing against the white farmers. And so the issues to do with the so-called the white farmers, it seems that President Trump has actually been misadvised on the same.
Misadvised then. So do you think that this was a win for South Africa, considering that this was really, or rather trade and investment was really rarely discussed at this meeting?
It's difficult at this stage to say whether President Ramaphosa was actually able to reach out to President Trump on this particular issue. One of the reasons he's there is to ensure that first, the issue of the G20, in which South Africa is the country which is on the presidency during this particular stage, he's able to galvanize all the leaders, including the United States, who have signaled they're not going to attend the summit for this particular year. President Ramaphosa still maintains that he would like to see the United States there, even as he hands over later on in the year. Hopefully, President Trump will have decided to go to South Africa in Pretoria to be able to join the other leaders for the G20. But also at the same time, for South Africa, which is seeking to increase its trade, already it has been slapped with 30% tariffs by United States. And it's one of the countries that is reeling heavily. There is a pause currently until July. And if that issue is not resolved, then South Africa is going to find it very hard. They'll have to pay the 30% tariffs. And that's expected to have an impact on the country.
All right, then. Well, Ken Karuri, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.